Oh, oh, that one. Hey, good evening. I call this meeting of the Johnson City Board of Commissioners to order for December 21st, 2017. If everybody will rise for the invocation by Father Peter Iorio from St. Mary's Catholic Church and remain standing for the pledge. Father.
Good evening, and before I pray, I'd just like to say a special word of thanks to you, the commissioners, and in particular Jenny Brock and to Becky Buchanan for the loving care you gave to one of our parishioners from St. Mary's, Jane Myron, former commissioner and former mayor, in her time of need. Shows what a great community we are. Let us pray. On this day of the winter solstice, the beginning of the season of cold, we humbly come before God. As we experience more darkness than daylight today, we trust that we are people of hope that keep the inner light of our souls burning brightly. We pray for all of our neighbors, our brothers and sisters, especially those who are suffering from the weather, the cold, the darkness of illness in their lives, loneliness, sadness, addiction, homelessness, unemployment, and underemployment. May the light of God's care and compassion be upon all of our commissioners as they work together with us, the citizens of Johnson City, to meet the needs of the least among us and to improve our community, especially as we desire to grow in understanding from our differences. May all of us be one in God as beloved brothers and sisters. And we pray through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Very good. Before we start tonight, I'd like to ask the Commission to add a couple of items to the agenda for the evening. The first one will be discussion of the city manager's objectives, and the second item being consideration of a beer license for Southern Craft Barbecue DBA Great Oak Brewing.
Mayor, I move addition of each of those two items to the agenda this evening, please.
We have a motion. How about a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Tomita?
Yes.
Your first order of business is consideration of the minutes from your meeting held on Thursday, December the 7th.
Have any comments, corrections, additions, subtractions? Any discussion?
Move for approval.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Tomita?
Yes.
This takes us to proclamations, resolutions, and presentations. The first being the presentation of a proclamation recognizing the East Tennessean.
Oh, come on up.
Here for moral support.
More the merrier. And being the former darkroom technician for the Daily Beacon down at UT and occasional photographer, I appreciate what you guys do. It is a not always recognized as, but it is a full-time job. A lot of work. Appreciate what you do. So we have a proclamation for you this evening. Whereas the East Tennessean is the student-run campus newspaper of East Tennessee State University, published twice weekly with 2,000 copies distributed to 30 locations on the main campus and the Veterans Affairs campus. And whereas the College Media Association Pinnacle Awards honor overall excellence for college media organizations and individual student work on college newspapers, websites, magazines, yearbooks, radios, and television stations, including internet and closed-circuit outlets. And whereas the East Tennessean was honored with this national award, bringing home the pinnacle in the writing category for the best breaking news story, which was written by David Floyd and Alexia Stewart. And whereas David Floyd served as executive editor of the East Tennessean for 2016-2017 before graduating in May 2017 with a bachelor's degree in media and communications. And whereas Alexia Stewart is a senior in the Department of Media and Communication and served as social media editor and general assignment writer for 2016-2017. Now, therefore, I, David Tomita, Mayor of the City of Johnson City, Tennessee, do hereby congratulate the East Tennessean on a remarkable accomplishment and for successfully and admirably representing Johnson City on the national stage. Congratulations. Thank you. That's where you clap. Want to say a few words?
Not really. I'm David Floyd. I graduated in 2017. I'm living in Asheville now, working for a weekly there. It's an honor to receive this proclamation. And Don, do you want to say anything? Sure.
I'm not Alexia Stewart, first of all. I'm Don Armstrong. I actually advised the publication, and it was quite an honor to learn that David won this award. And I was just glad that he was able to come back and be with us from Asheville to receive this evening. So thank you very much. It's quite an honor.
And we need to talk to you about coming back to Johnson City. Go cut your teeth and then come on back. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Your next presentation will be a proclamation recognizing Miss Johnson City.
Good evening. Good to see you again. I have the enviable honor of presenting this proclamation to you. Whereas Miss Johnson City has traditionally been a young lady of poise, intelligence, and charisma, a shining representative of our community who brings us great pride. Sounds like Commissioner Wise, actually. And whereas this year's winner, Morgan Muncie, is no different, having achieved great academic goals and made a difference in her community by working directly with young women in the Girls in Science and Technologies program and code camps. That's tough. And whereas Morgan's platform involving girls in tech, I Get, is an important one. As our lives become increasingly dependent on technology and its capabilities, there's a need for innovators, coders, designers, technicians, and a multitude of other highly trained workers in the field of technology and computer science. Your efforts reach girls in grades 3 through 12 by encouraging their involvement in STEM programs, science, technology, engineering, and math, will help increase the number of women working in the field of technology. I have 3 daughters, and I appreciate that. Now, therefore, I, David Tomita, Mayor of the City of Johnson City, congratulate 2018's Miss Johnson City, Morgan Muncie, and reconfirm the 1981 Board of Commissioners' unanimous action designated Miss Johnson City as the official hostess for the City of Johnson City. There you are. Thank you very much. And let's say a few words.
I just want to say thank you so much for this opportunity. It means a lot to get to represent Johnson City this year. The city's been my home for the past 3 years, and I love it. And I'm looking forward to representing when I enter schools to talk about I Get involving girls in tech, and as I compete in Miss Tennessee this year in June. So I'm really excited for this opportunity, and thank you so much.
Thank you, and good luck.
Thank you for all you do.
All right, Mr. Peterson.
The next item on your agenda is the city manager's report. I just passed down the written copy of this. The items that you had asked to be kept informed on, of course, the commission meetings are streaming, and the Outdoor Recreation Task Force is meeting, and we have Vice Mayor Brock serving on that board. We're also in the process of rebranding the city. North Star will be in town in early January. Each of you have meetings set up on January the 9th with their staff. They'll be up here during that week meeting with community members, elected officials, and other representatives of businesses throughout the community to start the process of developing the new brand for Johnson City. As you're aware, we are in the process of implementing a new work order program that will cover the entire city. Up to this point, we have had a number of different software programs that were department specific. The data conversion and the implementation continue, and we're hoping that Public Works and Water Sewer will be able to go live sometime in February with that new work order system. One of the real benefits of having everyone on the same platform it's going to allow our GIS division to take all of this data from one platform. It will give us a much better ability to track assets, and whether it's water valves or dump trucks or whatever it is, it'll allow us to really have a good, firm understanding of what it costs us to do things and how much we're spending on maintenance and those types of things. It'll be a real asset to us. The ADA transition plan, as you're aware, we're under contract with Kimberly Horn to develop that. They have begun their work. The CityView software, of course, is the software program that we implemented for codes and planning. We've had several training sessions with some of our customers, and we'll continue to do that as we move forward. The feedback we're getting from the commercial developers is very positive. They find it very user-friendly and quick. The home builders and some of the trades contractors are using it. We don't have the participation or the usage out of those particular groups that we would like to have, so we're trying to target opportunities to help them become acquainted with software and get better utilization. As I sent a message to you all last week, we have all of the final approvals for the Optimus Park to Kefauver Farm park conversion. That process is complete. Currently, TDOT has the road construction project on their February 2018 bid letting. So if all goes well, hopefully we'll see some construction out there on the road sometime this coming summer. Freedom Hall Management Services, as you requested, we issued an RFP. We've received 2 proposals, which staff has been reviewing. We supplied you all copies of that on Monday for your review. We'll have that back to you with a recommendation sometime in January as to how to move forward with the management agreement. Buffalo Valley Golf Course, of course, will be closed December 31st. The RFP for the property disposition is being finished up, and that should go out sometime early in January to see what interest there is for future use of that property. Cardinal Park, the new field lighting is being installed. That's underway, and hopefully they will meet their expected project completion, which is sometime the end of the month. The audit is complete, and we're going to get a clean audit. There will be a formal presentation to you of the audit sometime in January, but we met with the auditors earlier in the week for 2 or 3 hours to go through that. It's a good audit. Aerospace Park, the application for the state funding was submitted on time. We expect to hear the recipients of the grants sometime in January. We're not, obviously at this time, we're not sure how much money we're going to get, if any, or if we're going to get all of it, but Patrick and his group did a good job of getting the application put together and submitted. The Millennium Center, we continue to have discussions about potential future uses of the Millennium Center and the long-term expectations of that facility. And we're also in discussions with ETSU about the appointment of the Joint Oversight Committee for the Performing Arts Center. That was a requirement or an expectation of our investment in that facility. They have been doing some dirt work out there. They're starting to do some foundation work. That's going to be a lengthy project, and there's probably going to be many months of what I'll call dirt work before you really see anything coming up out of the ground. So I'm glad that is started and going. The Science Hill High School bank stabilization project is designed and should be going out to bid here real soon with that project to be completed prior to the next football season. Freedom Hall renovations, all of the currently planned and funded renovations are complete. That's floors, concession stands, seating, lighting. The only thing that is still in process up there is the filtration system for the pool. If you haven't been up there, that was money very well spent. That should get us another 40 years out of a 40-year-old building, and I think everyone's very pleased with the results of that. In development services, the lean group continues to meet and make process improvements, and we continue to hold weekly meetings with all the impacted departments and divisions to review project status. The feedback that we're getting is that customer relations seem to be markedly improved from where they were during our software conversion and back in the summer months. We have a number of vacancies that we're in the process of doing interviews on. Hopefully, we will have a decision on the police chief here in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And the development services application process is open until the end of January, and we'll move that along quickly as well.
Could you comment also on the sports science, the Olympic training project?
We had, as you all are aware, we had guests in town the first part of December from Asia that attended a sports coaches clinic at the university. While they were here, they brought some other potential investors to town to look at the project, learn more about the project. Towards the end of that trip, ETSU hosted a meeting with the parties from ETSU, the guests, some of the potential investors. And at the conclusion of that trip, the direction going forward is that there is to be a decision made by the end of June as to, is the project going to go forward? Who are the investors that are going to actually participate in the project? It was the consensus of the group that we really needed to put a timeline to that in order to bring closure to the process. There were several new potential investors that were in town in December, and there's ongoing discussions with several yet to come to town. So interest is still there. I think it's really down to the point now of the city is obligated to be an investor in the project through the donation of the land if other parties can put the funding together to make the project go. So there is some sense of urgency with the developers of the project now with the timeline put into place, and we're still very hopeful that that will come to fruition. And I'd be glad to answer any other questions or any other information you would like.
No questions? Do you want to segue right into the objectives from the city manager's report?
It's great from my standpoint.
Unless there's any objection? No? Okay. Anybody have a thought?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Over the last several months, we've undertaken the evaluation and review for the city manager, who is essentially the only employee that the city commission has and is the executive leader of the city. And so it's a critical role in setting the tone and direction on a day-to-day basis for the city. Over the course of that project, several different attempts at stipulating what those objectives would look like were made, and I found the most helpful basis to be the objectives that were stated by the previous commission that I think were labeled as 16 and 17 objectives. Those were tweaked because there was progress made on some of the objectives from the prior year that make them no longer relevant and or specifically relevant, and then some additions. It is that document that the city manager reacted to most recently, and I think in a way that was helpful. What I was most interested in was the degree to which those objectives in the city manager's mind aligned with a shared sense of the commission's goal and the mission and vision the commission has for the city. And so what I would propose we adopt as the final objectives for the current year are those that were presented to on the broad brush stroke. Pete went to great effort, and I found it helpful to go through and delineate very specific tactical steps that would go into fulfilling each of those objectives. But I think for the purposes of this commission, our objectives should be on a broad brush. And and then allow the city manager to implement without an over amount of tactical direction from the commission. That's the first part of a two-part thought that I've had over the last week or two on this topic. The second part relates to creating a format for revisiting this topic going forward, and did some thinking on that. There are certainly times of the year we would want to be doing city manager evaluations, and there are other times of the year where it would be disastrous and unhelpful. And with city commission elections now taking place in November, it seems to me that the second half of a calendar year is not necessarily a good time to be doing city manager evaluations. In part because you could elect 1, 2, or 3 new city commissioners and say, welcome to your second meeting, now's your chance to evaluate the city manager, and that doesn't seem particularly productive. All city staff are subject to their annual evaluations to occur in the year that ends at the end of March. And then the process kind of works itself out in April and May. And so I'm going to make a motion. The first part of that motion is that we adopt as the objectives, those objectives that were initially given to the city manager that he has commented on, less his specific comments. Those can be elements of his eventual reporting as far as progress goes, but the objectives are the big, broad brush. And then the second part of it is we move to an annual evaluation or review process that takes place in the same time frame as all other city employees, which I recognize means that we're setting up an evaluation process as we end an evaluation process to commence another evaluation process in 3 months. And that on the surface may not make sense, but I feel like I've outlined why that timing going forward probably makes more sense. And so I would suggest that the review that we do at March of 18 would be abridged in nature because we've obviously just completed a review. There's not much point in going through that protracted exercise when we're just now getting to the point of finalizing it at this point. So that would be my motion.
I will make a second to that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I would assume that you would be looking for a little bit less progress on some of these objectives than we would have originally been thinking as we've been discussing
I
this
think
last
when-
couple, 3 months, and you just kind of elaborate on what you think is adequate progress.
Yeah, I think some of the topics in the list are fairly broad, and so if you tried to measure them 90 days in, it would be a little bit tricky. But some of the areas, even if you look back to Mr. Peterson's response to these objectives, you can already begin to see progress taking place. And I think what we would be doing in the abridged evaluation in March would be looking for satisfactory and demonstrable progress towards those objectives within the 4 to 5 months from whence they were the objectives to when we're reviewing them.
All right, thank you.
One more comment. Are we going to use the same format as the last one that we used? Because
I have a thought on that too.
my problem is if our city manager gets 3s, which seem really bad on a scale of 1 to 5, if you're doing the job we've asked him to do without anything else, may look bad to our citizens out there that he's getting a 3, when 3 is he's done everything we've asked him to do. So I don't know if we need to change the scale or if we need to just change the whole format of how we do that because of the sections that we had and the in-depthness of some of it, and then especially for those people who come in for their first meeting in November or December, and in April they start this progress after just 3 months, like we started this year. So anyway, I don't know the answer to that. I'm putting it back to you.
My sense is this process could become complicated in a way that is unhelpful to it reaching its fullest potential. And what I mean by that is when we evaluate on a matrix that has dozens of fields in it, while I think that that's a perfectly acceptable measure, I don't know that for the city manager, that level of granular assessment is what we need to do. I think the way to assess is to say there's 6 or 8 objectives on this document, And is there satisfactory progress being made or not satisfactory progress being made? And then depending on which answer you give, defend the rationale for that answer. Yes, there is, and these are the three things that I see that lead me to that assessment, or no, there's not, and here are the three reasons I say that there is not.
Well, the only problem with that is there are attributes in a city manager that you need to see that may not necessarily be easily reflected in what those objectives are. The objectives, you can say, yes, they're met. No, they're not met. Yes, they're partially met. These are the areas where they weren't met. But then when you look at the attributes that are important in a manager, I'm not necessarily sure that that gets to that. So I agree with you. I think that he needs to be measured against those objectives primarily, but I'm not certain that that's the only thing that you measure against.
So we might need a personal and a professional look in there besides the actual objectives that we're doing or seeing.
Now, what I look at, to your point, if you're looking on a scale of 1 to 5, the comments that go with that are really what are important.
Right.
Because each one of us considers a 3 a little differently, perhaps. To me, 3 is good, okay? I'd rather see a 4 or 5, but 3 is good.
Right.
That's not necessarily the same for everybody. We had a past commissioner that I can think of real clearly, who everything was a 4 and a 5. I think that that would probably be reflective of a lot of us would think to be a 3. So there's some variability there.
And I think that's
and there always
part
will
of my
be, and so I
problem.
think the clarifying comments are
Right.
what really lend the most information going along with that scale.
Well, I think.
I'm not sure I'm not sure I would entirely dispense with that.
I think from Joe's, Commissioner Wise's motion to move it to the May timeframe, then that's just 3 or 4 months from us right now that we have, as you called it, an abridged, and we take a little bit different approach on that and really kind of go toward the objectives. The other piece of that is that's going to occur during budget time. And Mr. Peterson, I know you hold yourself very accountable to all the objectives that are built into the budget process. So as we're reviewing the budget going forward, we're completing the budget year we're in right now, and there's accountability for delivering on what, you've committed to in that budget process. And that's a very important thing to you as well. So we'll get a chance by moving it to this time frame to, I think, be very comprehensive, because we're seeing what I call kind of the clinical aspects of everything that we've done in the city at year end of budget. So I think that's a good way to look at it. But I agree with your approach there, Commissioner Wise.
Very good. Anything else?
As a separate but related part, I think there is also a question about the city manager's reporting that I don't know if needs to be given voice to now, or if we want to move on, take action on this motion and then just kind of formalize what that would look like.
If it's agreeable, I mean, we've got some time we're going to be spending together in some planning sessions here in the next few months. I think it's reasonable that we might tweak the form that we use to complete his review, as well as the form. I think several of us at least agree that the reporting format needs to be consistent.
I was
very
not as
consistent.
much speaking to the evaluation piece.
I paired them as related only to the city manager, and then something we probably could take a look at. So I don't think it's necessary unless somebody disagrees. I don't think we'd have to decide how we deliver that product yet. We have the ingredients.
Product are you talking about?
The review.
Okay, that's not what I was talking about.
And then
Okay.
also the city manager's report coming up with a format that we all agree is a consistent format that we receive every time.
That's what I was talking about.
I expanded on it a little bit, I'm sorry. That makes sense? We good? We'll go with that? All right. Anything else? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Temita?
Yes. Can we go ahead and take care of our beer license?
Let's take care of the beer license.
Although, as riveting as this meeting is, I'm sure.
You're not going to leave after this, are you?
This is consideration of a beer license for Southern Craft Barbecue LLC doing business as Great Oak Brewing. This is a request for a Class 7 manufacturer retail beer license. This is in a B2 zone. It is appropriately zoned. The appropriate reviews have been made. We would recommend that this be approved conditional upon all of the deficiencies identified from the Codes Division be addressed appropriately before the issuance of the license, and that is repair of some drywall in the grain room. There's some loose wiring, the installation of some fire-rated doors and hardware, and add a sprinkler head to the dust control room. None of this is extraordinarily significant, but it is mission critical for life safety before we
Very good.
issue the beer permit.
Very good. Would you state your name and address for the record, please?
Dale Zabala, 561 Rockingham Road, Johnson City.
And have you read the rules and regulations regarding the sale of beer in the city of Johnson City?
Yes, sir.
Do you agree to abide by those rules?
Yes, sir.
And do you have any questions for us?
No, sir.
Okay, very good. Do you have any questions for the applicant? And let me just say, Mr. Peterson, when we speak of being friendly and helpful in the process, this is exactly what I'm referring to. There are some items that need to be done, but we issue it contingent on that. You do understand those 4 items need to be completed.
Most of them are already taken care of. I've just waited on a couple of doors to come in. Be ready to
Very
do some
good.
beer next week, hopefully.
Good luck. Would you, Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please?
I'll make
I
a
have a
motion.
motion? Sorry.
I'll make a motion to approve the beer license for Southern Craft Barbecue LLC, doing business as Great Oak Brewing.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Now, Ms. Jennings, call the roll.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Tumita?
Yes. And if you'd like to tell us about your business.
Great Oak Brewing will be a product line extension of Southern Craft, so it's actually located in the same building as Southern Craft Barbecue downtown Johnson City. That's the back half of the building. It's a 7-barrel system with a 15-barrel fermenter, so we'll be able to create lots of beer. So we'll have 6 staple beers and then a couple of seasonal beers will come out, and those will be distributed mostly in our restaurants around the Tri-Cities, which is Label, Southern Craft, Stir Fry Cafe in Kingsport, and 620 State in Bristol. And that should take about 70% of the production, and then we'll distribute the other 30% to some local restaurants and tap rooms.
Very good. Best of luck to you.
Thank you. I appreciate you giving me
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Next order of business is consideration of the consent agenda.
All right, right to left, Commissioner Wise, anything you'd like to pull?
I've gotten my questions answered.
No, thank you.
Well, are you okay?
I'm good.
No, I'm not.
Vice Mayor Brock, nothing? And Commissioner Fowler? Well, very good. And I'll not be the stickler and pull something just for the heck of it. Do we have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do you have a second? Second. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Tumita?
Yes.
Mayor, this takes us to something I guess we could have done in the manager's report, but I've asked Janet to give us an update on our current status of our debt, where we stand in terms of what we've got issued and what her crystal ball may forecast for what's coming in the future. So Janet, if you could, please, ma'am.
Crystal ball. I'm trying to find a money tree, so.
There
There it is.
We have our money tree.
And where is that planted?
It's the same one that was planted last September
Yeah.
when we gave the last update. So, we're still trying to grow that tree and make it produce some fruit. But we've made some progress, so I'll give you a current state of affairs as far as debt's concerned. I provided you details. Sometimes I know it's interesting to see exactly which bond issues we have outstanding, so I pulled some excerpts from our CAFR. You'll see the CAFR, our annual report, later probably January, as soon as we can get the auditors in here to review that for you, and I think you'll be pleased at what you see. But I did pull some excerpts from there. The pages you have before you are excerpts of the debt that we have outstanding. You're going to see governmental activities and the business type activities. You're going to see general obligation debt, revenue debt, and you're going to see some capital outlay notes. So, in those, I've summarized the totals for you. Total of all the governmental funds is $129 million, round numbers. All the business type funds, which would include water, sewer, stormwater, solid waste, $83.7 million, and you might guess the majority of that is water sewer debt. You'll see details on that in just a minute, but I wanted to start at the high level and move down. So we have a total outstanding debt of $213.1 million. Now, that figure has decreased since last year, partly due to principal payoffs, but partly because of the transfer of the Johnson City Power Board to the authority. We immediately dropped $40.6 million of debt when that occurred. All of that debt was refinanced into the name of the authority. So this is a decrease from last year, partly for that purpose, mostly for that purpose. Now to drill down a little bit on the governmental fund debt, you can see we have some general fund debt that's roads and those sorts of things, roads, facilities, energy improvements, a myriad of things, $68.2 million. And then we have some school debt that we are paying, $9.2 million. So the total we have outstanding, and this is principal outstanding, from the general fund is $77.4 million. Some of that goes out another 19, 20 years. A lot of it's going to pay off sooner than that. Other general fund debt we have is $1.5 million of principal outstanding. That's paid by the TIF. So I put that here separate so you could see that that does have its own identifiable funding source. We have another $6.7 outstanding that is being paid by the 2% hotel occupancy tax. That's what HOT stands for. Hotel occupancy tax will reimburse that payment. I stole that, by the way. I saw that acronym somewhere, so I thought that's interesting. General purpose school fund has some energy debt outstanding, $8.5 million. The PEP fund has $34.3 million outstanding, and fleet management has another $1 million outstanding on radios. Total governmental fund debt, $129.4 million. Next, we have the business type debt, and as I said, the majority of that is water sewer debt. Almost $71 million. We have $5 million left to pay on all the stormwater improvements. And then PBA is included as a discretely presented component unit of the city. So that's included in our business type debt, $7.9 million. We do pay that debt service for them. Total of $83.7 million. What I did not include on here because it didn't meet the rounding was a small bit of solid waste debt, $10,000 that's still outstanding.
Ms. Jennings, just for the public's information, on water sewer, that $70.8 million is paid through ratepayers.
Exactly.
And the stormwater is through the stormwater fee.
Those are separate funds. Those are paid through the rate.
Okay.
The
Then
rates.
the PBA debt service just comes out of the general fund?
It does come from the general fund.
Okay.
But it comes through as a lease payment by the city. Okay. So I showed you where we are. So let's look back at where we've been. The total debt, total principal outstanding over the years, I went back to 2008, and you can see general obligation debt. Those were Build America bonds. You can see how that increased in 2010 as a result of that issuance of debt. 2012, we issued a tiny bit. 2013, a little bit more, so you see that jump up again. That was $24 million of water sewer and some stormwater debt and a little bit of PEP debt. That's in 2013. We issued a small amount of debt in 2014. Otherwise, you would have seen those bars go down significantly more, but we have some increases and decreases. And you see we're sort of level